If I were wealthy and corrupt, I might desire more and more wealth for myself and less for others. I might look with envy at those beneath, desiring their collective wealth for myself. I might seek to destroy those beneath and absorb their wealth for myself. If I were wealthy and corrupt, I might put a scheme in motion to accomplish these goals. I might start by attacking education, maybe lobbying my politicians and promising campaign contributions if they agree to make cuts to education, to reduce budgets, increase class size, pay teachers less, and overall make education less and less efficient. I might mask this by using my political puppets to solidify an educational criteria, to give children useless knowledge so that it appears as if their education has value. I might arrange it so that critical thinking and the importance of civic duty are left out, whereas pointless readings of Hamlet are reread year after year. This would ensure that children, once excited about school and wanting to learn, become bored and lose their curiosity and ability to question as they age. I may not have been the original cause of their pointless information, but I can certainly keep an already broken system from being repaired. If I were wealthy and corrupt, I might next continue my attack against the intelligence of the citizenry. I might consider a citizenry capable of stopping me to be a threat to my plans, and work to subvert it. I might set a scheme in motion to make their choices and their votes meaningless, and I might do this by fabricating social issues for people to pay attention to and fight over, such as the legality of marijuana, and then force my political puppets to dance for me, as the people of the nation think they have a choice. I might secure this belief by making them exercise their meaningless choices routinely, to sell them the illusion that they're in control. I might direct people's attention to solving petty social issues that I had constructed, to distract them from the fact that it was fabricated specifically for them to fight over, and with the already subverted educational system, most will believe that these issues are being progressively handled over time, and when the time comes, I'll simply fabricate another social issue by making my puppets ban something else at random, and then we'll start the cycle all over again. If I were wealthy and corrupt, once I had subverted both the citizenry and their educations, I might take steps to ensure they remain under my control. I might engineer a culture that would ensure the citizenry not only doesn't resist my plans, but are my accomplices. I'd promote social issues so people judge one another by how they dress or their sexual preferences, to distract people from things like the economy. I'd encourage cultural values that make people prideful of their own ignorance. I teach that everyone has an entitlement to their opinion, to believe what they want to believe, and that evidence and research weren't important. I might convince people that this was a cultural value, and deceive them into thinking their ignorance is a form of freedom. I might consolidate my victory over the culture by encouraging a morality to seal the deal. If I were wealthy and corrupt, this morality might be engineered to keep people under my control once things start to deteriorate for them. I'd encourage my political puppets to take stands on what's right and wrong, and set examples for people to follow, and I'd engineer the culture to suit my purposes. I might teach that peaceful protests are the most that should ever be used, and indoctrinate people with a belief that things will always work out for them automatically, so long as they act with certain restrictions, to ensure that no violent means are ever used against me. I might encourage selective interpretation of a religion or two to make people cherry-pick their beliefs, and engineer morality that forbids the citizenry from acting with force, and encourages them to be apathetic. I might encourage them to disregard the beliefs of their founders, or better yet, use the newfound entitlement to opinion to deceive people into believing their new morality matches the morality of their founders, since they'll never check anyway. Once I've done that, all I have to do is resort to violence from the legal system, and I will win every time, having rigged the game from the start. If I were wealthy and corrupt, with a government in my pocket and the citizenry bound by the morality I placed upon them, too ignorant to see how they're being used, and too apathetic to do anything about it anyway, I can now use the media to create social hysteria at will. Perhaps I would create a hysteria about crime, to make people sit back as I undermine their rights, and a few years later, another hysteria about terrorism, to crush their rights even more. Most won't even notice that I'm recycling the same old tricks. I could perhaps use this hysteria to create loyalty to my system. I could involve them in expensive wars until their economy collapses. I could perhaps fund or even create some organizations to be a great threat, to justify forcing my political puppets to attack the enemy I had created. Most people will be too uninformed to notice that the goal of these wars isn't to win. If I were wealthy and corrupt, my victory would be nearly complete. The country would be in a state of decline, and eventually it would decline far enough for me to destroy the lower classes and seize their wealth for myself, to feed my endless hunger. I would survive this great fall, but those beneath would not, and I would gorge myself on the coming feast. And I'd have help from others wealthy and corrupt like me. The subverted legal system would create more customers for the private prison systems. The prolonged wars would provide wealth for the defense contractors. The destructive medical industry would feed the insurance companies and make people more apathetic for fear of debt. Keeping marijuana banned could benefit the lumber industries. We would all feast together on the blood of the state. Not all those feasting are corrupt, but if they were to stop feasting, they'd surely be disadvantaged and consumed by others like myself. After all, cannibalism is natural in our world. If I were wealthy and corrupt, having consumed my nation, drained it of life and turned it into a backwater, I would look around greedily for other nations to devour, and move on to my next great feast. And the best part? The new nations that I will feed upon will be none the wiser. They will believe the state I had just consumed was the only state that had leeches, and the only state that could be devoured, and in their arrogance I will devour them as well. So strong are people's beliefs that others are corrupt and they are pure, that I can feed upon this arrogance, nation after nation, for hundreds of years to come. If I were wealthy and corrupt, I might have thought myself immortal, towering above the lower classes like a man over an anthill. I might have thought myself a god among men, and immune to death. I might one day find my human body to deteriorate, and be faced with the grim reality that all humans eventually die. I might believe this to be unfair or unexpected, totally unaware that my greed blinded me. I might complain as to the injustice of it, that I was a god who could not die, and this was the most unfair thing to ever happen. I might remain ignorant of how I had sabotaged medicine and science by my greed, and simply think it unfair, blindly ignorant of the true cause until the point of death, too blinded by greed to understand that I had brought this fate on myself, and bound others to fall with me. Or perhaps, just maybe, I might, in my final days, realize that my greed had damaged human progress, and that in my blindness I had greedily thrown out my own future in return for a few extra coins. Having deprived the nation of intelligence and education for medical advancement, I may have been totally unaware that medicines could have been developed to heal me and extend my life. I might be fearful of what lay beyond for a while, but on my deathbed I would take comfort in knowing that I managed to sabotage the rest of humanity, and that if I am to die pointlessly, I will be certain that they die pointlessly with me. It makes no difference that I brought this fate upon myself, because I am a god, and if I am to die needlessly, the ants beneath me must die needlessly too. And I would be certain that they would, having succeeded in consuming their nation and their progress. And with that, my true victory would be complete. I may have made the mistake of throwing away my own future, but if I destroyed mine, then the rest of you must have yours destroyed as well. And I would take comfort in knowing that after I die, in all likelihood, others wealthy and corrupt like me from many nations will continue the sabotage, and the ants will remain complacent. It's not a grand conspiracy. We're just hungry. Forever hungry. If I were wealthy and corrupt, I would have won. I lived life towering over the ants, feasting on the blood of nations, and in death I take comfort knowing the ants will live and die worse than me. So I win. Or humanity could get its act together and have a more interesting future. That's just what I'd prefer. See you next time.